I would like to invite Mr. Chamath Algawatta,
Chief Information Security Officer, LankaPay Private Limited. Mr. Nirosh Ananda, Chief Information Security Officer, Sri Lanka CERT. Followed by Mr. Neranjan Dissanayake, Chief Technology Officer, Just-in-Time Group. Also, the Head of GRC, Daraz, Mr. Mohan Chathuranga. Followed by Mr. Sujit Christy, President, ISC2 Sri Lanka Chapter.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and fellow stakeholders in the realm of security and resilience. It is my pleasure to moderate a panel discussion today to delve into a topic of utmost importance in our increasingly connected world. So I call the topic Cyber War Games, Preparing for the Digital Battlefield. So I'm sure all of you have had a exciting, I don't know how many of you felt stressed out, but I felt stressed out when the announcement went out saying that at 3 o'clock, you need to close this out. So if you have not submitted your results, that you may not be considered for an award. Right? So the life is like that, right? So we have such curveballs being thrown at us at all times. Sometimes we think the life is smooth and suddenly you have something springing up. Or sometimes you planned a holiday and your CIO calls you in. So life is unpredictable. We've seen that and we saw that in the last 3 years much more than we ever did. On one side, we saw the physical pandemic, the COVID-19, and we also saw the digital pandemic growing in stature. Right? Even as you comfortably sit in this air-conditioned hotel, good food, good comfort, good friends around you, how concerned are you what's actually happening out there in your organizations? Are you concerned? Do you have visibility to what's happening? How prepared are you? So in order to take this discussion forward, I have with me well-experienced professionals in the industry, several years of experience, and they've seen a lot, I would say a lot. And sometimes the things they have seen may not appear as headlines in the news. Right? Some of these we probably talk in side chats, but then when we walk out of that door, we don't even talk about it, right? It stays with us. But I'm trying to solicit some of those things to the surface and ask them some questions on your behalf. And to start with, I'm going to start with Chamath. You had a long day today, right? I mean, I won't say today is the longest day. He has had a long week preparing for this, right? So we've had calls together. And I think even yesterday night, you all went and ramped up a lot of things. You made things more difficult, so to say. In your opinion, how do you see this exercise? What are the learnings? What are the takeaways for these people? Chamath?
Yeah, Sujit. So, yes, it was a very long week. This is an training, or this is an event that CISO had conducted about 3 times before. This used to, so initial plan was to have this event as an annual event, but the pandemic struck us and we were not allowed or we were not able to do a lot of physical events, so to get people together and conduct this type of an event. So, so after everything now coming back to normal, so we thought this would be a good year to start up with the event back again. The motive of this event is for our industry guys to get together and face a simulated incident. Even though I call this as a simulated incident, this is an actual incident that has happened or that was created and purposely built for this particular training or the workshop. And so whatever the logs, what you are getting are actual logs even though the incident is staged, we have actually built the platform. We have actually conducted the attacks that you have found out. Then we have extracted the particular logs for you to make it as much as realistic as possible. So main outcomes that we plan to get you to is to, we want you to understand how to manage an incident. How to, when you see an incident, when you get a first alert, to the point of you completely give an incident report, give the lessons learned, do the root cause analysis. We want you to run through the process. It's very compressed, very fast paced, but it might be the same case when you actually see and you actually come across an incident. You don't have the luxury of time. So this is an incident, or this is a training that other more major important thing is we have shuffled people, right? In the morning, some of the guys ask us, aren't we sitting together we are from the same organization, why aren't we sitting together? No, that is purposely done because we want you to make connections within the industry itself as well. Okay. The reason is, when the bonds are stronger, when we know our counterparts on the industry, it's very easy to work. We have our communications. And other thing is that we have different level of experience. So if the same people you daily work with, you know what their experience is, you know what they're capable of. But when we mix people, you are exposed to different experiences. So this is another plan or another outcome that we wanted to have. So Sujit, these were the main aspects of this type of a training that we decided when we initially planned the event.
So I see from your comments, right? It's a successful event. Yeah. Why I say successful? It's orchestrated. You have desired results, right? So you've been able to simulate something closer to reality. So moving on, Mohan, I'm just going to ask you, right? Now, he spent a lot of time, and I'm sure you were also involved in putting things together. In real life, we're talking about people, process, and technology. People, in my mind, are unpredictable, both internal employees and external, right? So the bad actors. But technology, to a certain extent, you can control. Process is something which will marry everything. Now, what is your advice, having worked in multiple regions with multiple organizations at diverse sizes of organization, and even culturally, how do you see, or what do you want to share with them in terms of the challenges they could face and how they can overcome this? What?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Sujit, and thank you for the invitation for FinCSO as well. Challenges in different cultures and different countries and geolocations in operation. If I relate to the topic here that we're discussing today, the understanding is how incident management and incident response get challenged in multiple geo areas. So one of the main phases in incident management, even what you look into, is the preparation and identification. So more geolocations and more geo regions that you operate means that the whole exposure, the preparation and identification takes a large extent because your threat actors that you're trying to deal with is quite vast, and the complexities that they bring in is quite vast. I'll give a quick example. When you operate on a single region, so you'll probably not get exposed to certain nation state or certain espionage across that. So whereas when certain markets are larger, when you operate, you become part of someone else's victim. So you're not supposed to be the victim, but in someone's kill chain that you become a victim in geopolitical and nation state attacks. So sometimes we don't see that complexity in certain markets, but culturally what you would see is in multiple regions, the attack types are different. For an example, if you see that if you do operate in some of the downturning markets these days, you would see a lot of scams happening. And if you see some of the markets who are threatened by geopolitical forces, you see there's a lot of movement to extract data and monitor traffic. So these kind of organized crime leading to nation-state attacks, when you provide critical infrastructure to certain segments of the economy, plus critical infrastructure to a lot of people in terms of volume, your threat actors and people that you have to deal with is quite large. And in terms of the culture and working with multiple cultures, it's difficult in a way. From my experience, sometimes what I've seen is in an incident call, if you have people speaking 5 different languages in 5 different countries, it's extremely difficult to say how urgent that you need this report. Very simple terms. So how you communicate and how you strategize around incident management, that is why the frameworks are quite important, because everyone syncs to the same methodology of reporting, to analyzing, to eradication mechanisms, minimizing mechanisms, where you keep scrolling down into a particular scope to identify where the actual attack happened. But in order to do that, if you just have to communicate each time, and if you don't have a framework, it is extremely difficult in cross-cultural teams, because you are constantly trying to make communication rather than sticking to a process. And those are some of the cultural challenges what I've seen operating, because you have to operate with multiple partners as well, in terms of things like, working into takedown, to sometimes hunting certain threats and doing investigations. But you have to make sure that there's a process that everyone understands around the globe and around the regions. Yeah.
I'm going to stay with you, Mohan, right? Just a continuation of this question. I think this audience is fairly represented, if I take the financial institutions. And I think one of the key things which I've been always vocal about is sharing threat intel. Right? Do you see that as a challenge amongst these people? Culturally, or all of them speak the same language and we are from the same region. Do you foresee this as a challenge?
Yeah, and that, I think even within Sri Lanka, so unfortunately, I did have to face a major incident at some point, and but the threat intel sharing and how we do that as a community methodically, obviously can improve, because in our mind, it's linked to the reputation of an organization than the larger defense that we are trying to build towards the next few years. So instant impact to one brand is considered far more higher than what we as an industry, as a country, would face in the next few years. That's the base of threat intel that we do. So in terms of threat intelligence, that is why most of individual organizations would go for commercial sources and get those commercials, not for the raw feeds, but rather the commercial feeds, where you get curated intelligence for your own brand. So because you really don't want your bad press to go out, simply. But in actual terms, what happens is, if some commercial source is giving you that intel, that means that intel is available to everyone anyway. So if you have credentials leaked in dark web for your organizations, and one threat intel partner is able to give you that, which means any partner can give you that. So, but if you as an industry, as country, and as a region share the same intel, and it would be faster for you to respond, because the curated content, either from a keyword, from a metadata, or certain assets, digital asset point of view that you gain, is minimal to you. Whereas if you also have, I think that's what FinCSR is doing to a great extent as well. If you share it internally, it will be faster, because someone might not have the exact certain capability of commercial threat intelligence partner, but whereas the industry, others will have that. You're still going to, I'm trying to simplify the example, I'll try to simplify that. ABC Bank having that intel, so anything which hits abcbank.com, they'll get it. But if their commercial partner would miss that, But if you have an industry threat detail source, because they're looking at abc.com, cd.com, to everything, so they might get it. So it's not bad to share intel. It's always good, because the threat actors are anyway going to attack everyone.
It's good to share threat intel, right? I always take the physical example. Let's say your neighbor's house gets robbed. Would you be interested to know about it? Yes, you would be interested to know about it. And you would also tell everybody in the neighborhood in the good spirit, not bad press, good press, so that you can secure the game. Right, very shortly I'll be coming back to you. So if you do have any questions for the panelists, so have them ready. And I will allow you to ask the questions from them as well. So Neranjan, you would have heard Mohan talk about speed. Right, and always it reminds me of athletics, right? Who is that sportsman who kept beating his own records, milliseconds? The guy who advertises for Nissan? Right, doesn't occur to me. I mean, it doesn't come to my mind immediately. But we're talking about mean time to detect, mean time to respond. Right? These are wonderful terms. We keep hearing it in all the forums. We talk about it. And you're in a key position right now, because from your position where you sit, you get to see much more than the people out here, right? You get to see what happens not only in Sri Lanka but elsewhere. The point I'm coming to you is how important is to act fast. And in order to act fast, what is that the organization should have so that they can be agile and respond to an incident promptly? Neranjan, I know I've asked a lot of things here. Take your time to respond to this.
Yeah. Thanks, Sujit, for giving us the opportunity to sponsor this great event. I think all the participants would have been able to learn a lot. Thanks again for giving us the opportunity. Yes, mean time to detect and mean time to act, those are very interesting terminologies. So if you follow certain research, I think you might already know that even if you are breached, it takes more than 200 days for you to even detect that you are breached. On average, it takes 200 days. I mean, from year to year, it slightly gets decreased or increased, but generally it takes more than 200 days for you to detect even if you are breached, right? So in earlier days, it used to be a lot of manual processes, but right now we are dealing with a lot of new technologies which can help us to create comprehensive and very detailed, extended cybersecurity architectures. And so we hear a lot of buzzwords these days. I mean, if you focus on things like XDR, that means cross-layer extended detection and response, which would help you to correlate events coming from different layers. I mean, if you know about cybersecurity architectures, you know that we have to create a comprehensive architecture, keeping defense in depth in mind, right? And so the architecture should be layered in fashion, and it should be designed in such a way so there are complementary solutions which can help each other. So if you have a sophisticated XDR architecture, then you can collect a lot of information coming from different layers. You can correlate them, analyze them, and generate automated results, automated alerts actually, right? So you are trying to eradicate the human error in those solutions. And we have AI tools coming into play. I mean, you can literally create playbooks which can run on their own, and thus you can eliminate a lot of manual human work. I mean, we are all human beings and we do a lot of mistakes. I mean, as cybersecurity professionals, I'm sure you all go through fatigue stages. You get stressed out, and when we are stressed out, we make mistakes, we make misconfigurations, and that's how it works. That's how the human world works. So we can actually eliminate a lot of human errors by using automated tools, artificial intelligence. And also, there are technologies like security, orchestration, automation, and response tools, which can help you with that. And also, I mean, for you to detect things faster, you can use threat intelligence tools, DRPS, digital risk protection services, brand protection services, kind of stuff. And all these sophisticated technologies are there to help you out. That's one part of it. I mean, definitely you can reduce the mean time to detect by using these technologies. And AI is playing a vital role right now in all the technologies, machine learning, supervised machine learning as well as unsupervised machine learning. And they will help you to do automated correlation and detection and even response activities. So if you have created the sophisticated playbook in one of your tools, then it will do the response part also. But the thing is, you can't completely eliminate the human process. So you might have heard a word called IA, intelligence augmentation. So artificial intelligence tools will help you to augment your intelligence, but it cannot completely eradicate the human intelligence source in certain aspects, how we think and see certain events. So manual skills, the cybersecurity skills are needed, and by coupling it with modern tools and technologies and having great architecture would help you to definitely reduce the time and respond to an incident in a faster way.
Thank you, Neranjan. I mean, you spoke about automation, talked about the human side of it, fatigue, right? The more you get burnt out, the chances are that you would miss out that is something which is staring at you on your screen, right? So, I mean, I'd just like to talk about something which happened recently, which was in the news. I'm not sure how many of you heard about this. There was one data center in a country which had a cooling system issue, and it tripped off, and the servers also got baked, and because they had to physically shut it down, right? And eventually, when they looked at this whole incident, when they looked at the analysis or what really caused it, even to shut down, they did not have enough people. They had only 3 people managing one of the largest data centers in that part of the world. And they had to bring in more people to restore the services back. So with that note, Ananda, I'm just coming to you, right? Your position is very interesting, right? You get to see not only what happens in the critical information infrastructure organizations, the private sector, the public sector, and overall, you also get to see what happens from Sri Lanka's perspective, right? Geopolitics and whatever. Right, so I have a 2-part question for you. How is the threat landscape evolving as we talk? And the second part is, what would you tell them as takeaways, what they should do in terms of post-incident analysis? Because a lot of time what people do is fix the issue, get back and start running the race again. Nobody would pause and ask the question, what triggered it or what learnings they have to this thing. So would you be able to share some insights on that, Ananda?
Yeah, thank you, Sujit, for the question. And so we have seen different level of threats, the attacks happening, especially because I am dealing with most of the time with the government, public sector, but not limited to public sector, because I have seen some of the financial institutions as well. So I have seen some of them have been compromised, especially with the ransomware. The ransomware, we were talking for a long time, but it was quite new for Sri Lanka. We haven't seen much, and there was small incidents were taken place, but now we have seen it's happening the larger scale. And that was as a DDoS actually. So those were the new emerging one, and there was no proper or the sustainable prevention solution for ransomware, as we know. And so that is coming up very fast. And the impact, even I have seen, is very, devastating. And because some people were with us basically, so they have been with us, they have done the assessment with us. So we have seen the infrastructure, because once we go to a location, so we see not only from the black box texting, but we get into their systems and see their readiness and all, at least high level. So if I add the lessons learned kind of a thing, even because I have seen they were with us, they were quite ready to respond to the incident, because the ransomware, there is no solution as such until keep it aside and continue the business as usual. So were they ready to do it? Because financial institutions are very critical. So even not limited to government, even the public sector, some organizations are very critical. So these kind of things are very fast, and the frequency. also more compared to the couple of years back, especially during the COVID, we started experiencing. But the post-COVID even, we thought it will be quite okay because people were moving, people can move to their locations and they can see infrastructure rather than monitoring it remotely. But even after that, so we have seen the, threats are getting increased. It might be a different angle the attackers might be seen. And ransomware, as I told you, so, now the scale is bigger, as I told you, frequency is bigger. At the same time, the magnitude is the high magnitude, high probability. So since it is there, so what is the second question you asked was?
What are the learnings?
Learnings.
What should they do as post-incident analysis?
Yes. So basically, the first thing basically they need to do is actually establish a proper communication, as you mentioned before as well, like to timely take an action before waiting it until it goes above your nose. Initiate the communication. Perhaps the forums like this might be having informal no communication links. So start information communication at least first, then do the proper formal communication. Escalate to the locations, perhaps CERT or CERT, and take seek for the assistance and try to recover as soon as possible rather than waiting. And sometimes they were doing some experiments whether they can recover without knowing exactly what is the procedure to be followed, because they haven't done any drills or such things before. So since they have not done, so these kind of things actually, quite good eye-opening, kind of interesting, because they know at least what to do next. So these kind of exercises were very important. Lessons learned were basically, so they haven't done basically the drills, they have not done the assessments right time, and they were not known what to be done. So they were waiting, basically a kind of ransomware that I have seen. So it got spreaded across the organization. So they could have prevented at least some point if they were seeking for the assistance and what to do next. So that basically, quite a eye opener for me. And so we need to penetrate into the other sectors as well. So because financial sector is very important, because we are right now dealing with the financial sector. So they are very critical, because you can't keep a system down at least for 5-6 minutes. It will have biggest financial impact as well as the business impact. So I think that is a good lesson that I have.
It's not only business impact, at some point in time, they'll be penalized as well, penalties, with the certain laws coming in. So Ananda, I mean, very, very insightful, right? Because I would relate to all what you said to something which they do day in, out, or at least periodically, the fire drills. So that's a scenario, right? So then there's a fire, there are people, designated people to do certain activities, and then people have to sequentially or in an orderly manner evacuate the building and assemble at some point in time. But I think one of the things I would like to highlight is that you all need to create your own scenarios. And certain things you may need infrastructure to simulate, but it might be a good idea for you to even do a tabletop walkthrough. Let's say a simple thing. If there is a virus infection, what would you do? If it's a ransomware infection, what would you do? If there is a denial of service, what would you do? Right? So identify those scenarios. The more scenarios you identify, you would have specific tasks listed as to who would do what. That would also reduce the time, like what Neranjan and Mohan also mentioned about speed, the time. So it's all about how quickly you can identify and isolate. So I take a pause from the panelists and I'll open the floor for the audience to ask questions. I can see Indika smiling and raising his fingers. So if we can have a mic to Indika. Oh, I'll share my mic.
Thank you very much, Sujit. I think for the benefit of all of you, Sujit gave the mic to the audience at a very critical, questionable point. So we all came here for cyber war games. I know all the participants are actively participated and went through rigorous exercises. So do we do this in our organizations? So this is an annual event. once in an year, your hands-on cyber war games. Your war is bigger than this. The exposures are bigger than this. My question is to Mohan. I think with your wider exposure with global organizations and coming from an advisory plus hands-on this area, is there any reason that organizations are not advocating this area, practicing their war games internally? What could be the reason? What is lacking there? We all talk about the cyber attacks that can happen, 0-day stuff and all this. Why they do not practice this internally or get external guys to do these exercises?
Yeah, thanks, Andega. A bit of a difficult question to answer why someone else would not practice. So I would not know, honestly, if not practicing. But why there's less focus in incident response is, I would say, from what I've learned and the conversations that I had, is simple human nature. So how interested are you in insurance, then how interested are you in preventive mechanisms? Simple as that. So we want like prevention than response. So it's just human nature in a way. And one other thing is traditionally over the years, security has been looked as a method of preventing something rather than a science of larger framework where prevention is just one component of it. We gradually started with technologies which are focused on prevention, right? So then you evolved into incident management, to responding, to automation, to intelligence, to all that. So all the technologies and processes ideally started with the prevention layer, and thus we have a natural instinct saying that the prevention layer would always work, and we don't need to worry about an incident management framework. And number two is that it's extremely difficult to simulate a real world scenario in a way as well, because we would know that we are simulating whenever that we are simulating. So classic example, even what we're doing today, with the attack that is going on, it's starting from a web interface in a front end, and going from there. But in real world, if you look at organized crime, you're looking at that front. 3 days down the line, you're going to understand that you actually were a target of data leakage incident. You would only know 3 days down the line that was not the attack, because you restored everything, and the third day you are going to get a ransom note saying that I would leak this data. So the scenarios and simulations that you do might not be a real world thing that you're actually simulating, and people see that, okay, why would I do it anyway? Third reason, I would think that there's less adoption in simulation, real world simulations, is that whenever you do an exercise, it would not feed into an experience or another management system. So you'd have to have a very robust incident response and management framework internally for you to do something and feed it back. So sometimes we treat incident response and this piece like the last piece of cyber defense strategy. So if that is the first piece, we would give it a lot of priority. So, but this is the last piece. So we do a lot of things in the first few layers. When we have enough, when we get some time, when we get some budget, let's do this. So it becomes an afterthought, and you won't get it every day as well. So that's kind of things that I've seen, but I think others could add more with the insights.
So on the second point that Mohan came up with, to know that you've been attacked is the key point. So that is, so mean time to detection, as Neranjan explained earlier as well. So the key is the speed. Everything depends on up to the point that you know that you're being attacked. Because most of the times, we talked about dark web monitoring, threat intelligence, such incidents. So when it is dark web when your data or when the incident is on the dark web, that means you are already done for. So then we have to work only on the recoveries, but the data is out. So we all know that once something is on the internet, it's on the internet. It's very difficult to get back. So we always try to, I think that is one of the reasons that we invest a lot in detective measures to detect, use AI. On the other hand, see, we have to look into thousands of ways of getting attacked, while an attacker has to find only one way of sneaking into the network. So we have to have 1,000 eyes, while this guy can do this with 2 pair of eyes. This is one thing that we need to do. So I think, on my view, risk-based selection of incidents, risk-based attack scenarios, playbooks are one way for us to prioritize looking at our own infrastructure, looking at our own technologies and seeing and gather threat intelligence, gather patterns of attack to understand what are the trends and measure the probability of types of attack that we are facing. There is a one way that we can prioritize, but even then I cannot say that's 100%. There's still a chance of somebody attacking.
Neranjan, before you respond, I want to give you a cue. He spoke about under attack. So we talked about, I think we had our own chats where we spoke about zero trust. So do you want to talk something on those lines plus whatever you wanted to say? And then we will open the floor again for another question.
Yeah, it's actually zero trust. I'll try to maybe explain briefly. I don't know whether like zero trust is actually relevant to this question, but
it's relevant to this question
what
because he's talking about assumed breach.
Yes. So zero trust is basically never trust, always verify kind of thing. I mean, it's a very simple theory. I mean, people are trying to implement it different ways. Different vendors have different architectures and implementation methodologies. But the basic thing is you don't trust any device, user, or application unless it's completely verified. So we can define various criteria to, I mean, like we can define various policies or rules, so we can automate everything to like with a threshold to get it into a trusted level. But it depends on how we configure. And so it's a new concept which might help with what Chamath actually explained. But what I wanted to highlight is that regarding what Indika said, actually, in Sri Lanka, one of the main issues that I have seen in companies is that the lack of resources and not focusing on the right areas. I mean, we are focusing on getting our cybersecurity teams ready for prevention and maybe detection and correlation and up to a certain extent response as well. But we don't invest in people who can train others, who can guide others. And I mean, even if you want to have simulation-based, scenario-based war game kind of a thing, there should be actually people who can create those scenarios, implement it, and train people and guide them. And but with the limited budgets and resources that we have, so we can't exactly have that kind of people in every company or every bank or every financial institutions. But there are people who can actually help you. I mean, I think we all are members of either ISACA or ISC2 or maybe both. So these professional bodies can definitely help the financial institutions and banks. I think we were discussing about various activities that we can launch in the future as well in this capacity. I mean, to train people on incident response and scenario-based role play kind of things. And also, there are a lot of free tools and technologies out there, a lot of CTF platforms, capture the flag platforms, and there are even principal cybersecurity vendors who can help you free of charge even. Actually, you have to know whom to reach and when to reach, and there are people who can actually help you. So just talk to the people in the industry, discuss things with the industry bodies, and I think these kind of things should be a continuous thing. I mean, if we do this right now and you will learn certain things, but if you go home and forget those things, there's no point. So you have to do this as an regular exercise.
Thank you, Neranjan. How about this table? Suresh, you are here. Do you have a question? Yes. No.
Just one question, I mean, related to the same topic you were discussing. I mean, do you see a lot of people actually doing red teaming exercises? And also, do you see people looking at, I mean, there are new portals that actually do social and dark web monitoring and actually give you, like, I mean, now a lot of, let's say, financial institutions are actually keeping monitoring of presence on social web and sorry, on dark web and all of this type of thing. And also we are pushing more towards, doing red teaming assessments, but we don't see a lot of people actually available locally to actually give this task out. So one of the complications that you would have is then you'd have to go to an overseas party, which ends up costing you a lot of dollars. So what are your views on that?
Suresh. Yeah.
No, I'll ask after that question. No, I just want to ask another question. Please go ahead. Okay. So basically, I just want to ask, the security investments are generally not that cheap, right? So, and we also see that technology landscape has been evolving so rapidly. So we come up with all these fancy names and new technologies all the time. Then by the time we procure something and start implementing it effectively, the technology has been there, as a new technology already has come up, right? So, and organizations also kind of, do we really need to go for these Rolls Royce kind of solutions at all the times? Or if we don't go, is that mean we are not secured? Or are we kind of left behind the trend of adapting certain things? So, what's your take on that? So, just to think of a way where how much we can balance it out, because the investments are also expensive, but they have been rapidly changing, as well as we based on the budgets and how much we can balance it out. So that's the question.
Shall I answer it? Yeah, sure. So just to give you an answer, so I think from my perspective, I don't think that we have to go with all these fancy modern technologies and solutions. I mean, at a certain point of time, we will have to implement those things. But even though we implement all these fancy solutions and technologies, if you don't have the balance between people, process, and technologies, so I don't think you will not get the maximum out of things. So during the pandemic period, so I was literally there in one of the biggest companies in Sri Lanka. I will not tell the name, but they had all these fancy technologies implemented, and in their data center, their entire team was just literally pulling the plugs out in their routers, switches, and servers, and in their complete environment, and they were completely breached, and they are all of their servers and databases were encrypted. But they had all these fancy solutions latest at that time. I mean, that was in 2020. So if you don't train your people, if your people don't know how to configure these things and to take maximum out of things, and even if they do, if you don't have the right process implemented, then I don't think implementing these solutions would be good. I mean, it depends on the organization. If you have the capable people and process, then you can go for these solutions. But if not, then you will have to develop the internal skills or process. Else, then you will have to go with the complete managed service kind of thing, where you can get external consultancies and help to manage your infrastructure. But that's what I think.
Yeah, just answering the first question to start off with. Is red teaming relevant? Is that talent is that talent is available in Sri Lanka and all that? So the first question is why red teaming? So it's to real world simulate what an attacker would do. So now the question that we want to ask is the attacker Sri Lankan? So what are we trying to simulate? So the attack surface, when you open yourself up, it opens up to the entire world. So now anyone with the talent can hack into your organization, even though you're in Sri Lanka. So now, if you get out of your hat of an organization and you become a hacker, what is your first question? The first question is, what am I hacking this for? Let's take organized crime. So organized crime, number one answer is that the biggest hackers group in the world, will probably not target the $86 billion market economy, right? That's number one. So you would not get the number one hacker in the world try to hack Sri Lanka. Probably not. I mean, logically not. So then, but if you go to the second layers, third layers, where the hacking tools and hacker markets and forums are emerging from countries like Southeast Asian, some of the countries, some of the Russian region countries, some of the East Asian countries as well. Those are not targeting the biggest US banks or either big markets. So those hacker groups are targeting smaller segments for ransom. So then the attacker capabilities that we are looking to simulate are that kind of attacker simulator. So I'm trying to analyze the threat landscape that we are trying to fight with. So that is still a moderate level of red teaming that you need to have. So in red teaming, what you are going to have is OSCP to all these kind of aggressive attack kind of skill and capabilities that you want to simulate. Yes, that skill is extremely hard to be available on the country because they have a demand outside. But from an organization point of view, if you want to make an investment on red teaming, it should be an investment to match your threat landscape. Whether you take it from which market, that is, I think you should go ahead and do it. How that is done, there are models. I've met people in Sri Lanka even conducting them. And to a certain extent, they are coordinating with external parties and trying to bring models where you can cut down on the cost and phase it out, set out objectives, because red teaming is all about how you set objectives. So if you do a proper risk assessment and set limited objectives for the red team, the time and effort that they put is only for that particular objective. Either it's a data extraction or a system down or a compromise of existing system, taking them down, different levels. If you set the objectives and scope it down, yes, that's an affordable investment. So maybe from a point of affordability and ROI, maybe something that we need to scope out, but still you have to simulate what you have to simulate.
I think we have run out of time, so I'm just going to take another 30 seconds to have closing thoughts from you. So I'll start with you, Ananda. Sorry, I could only give you one question. Yeah. So if you have anything which you want to add, especially I think on the sidelines we spoke about the legal aspects. So if you want to make a comment on that and then share your takeaways for that.
Yeah. So in terms of bank, CBSL has some guidelines so the regulatory requirement to be followed by the organization. So it is not implemented just to giving them additional stress, so something like that, but it is to make sure that they are following the baseline security standards and they are comply with it, which will be a result that they are resilient from potential attacks. So some of the organization reached Sri Lanka CERT as well in that sense, so we have done. And while we are doing it, because there are three areas basically when it comes to the risks, right? What you need to do. The risk treatment plan, whether you have to accept it, mitigate it, or you have to transfer it to some other organizations. What is your risk mitigation plan? Then we have seen, you are just trying to make sure that you are meeting the regulatory requirement for the sake of getting, approval for go to the next year. But the effort is from the CBSL side, because as a government entity looking after the national security as well as the financial, the economic security, what we see is that just complying is not enough, because you are to comply to make sure that you are resilient against the potential threats. So, I mean, there are so many, acts we have, like Computer Crime Act, Electronic Transaction Act, Payment US Fraud Act, and even Cybersecurity Bill is coming up. At the same time, the Personal Data Protection Act, which you need to comply with within next few months onward, which is a new area to be addressed, especially the PII data protection. So these things are there in order. I think you have to play a big role in terms of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ananda.
Yeah, so I'd like to take one step back, and there's one aspect that's one outcome that we wanted our teams to take home with this training is coordination and communication. So this is one when we send the invitation for the event, we have sent if you're at minimum, please participate 2 people, 1 person representing technical aspects and 1 person representing governance aspect. So the reason is when we see an incident, when an incident happens, it's not just ISO or information security or system administrators problem. It's an organizational problem. So even here, the incident simulation done through emails, done through communication. So one important thing is you need to ask the right questions. If an ISO information security, I will try to relate to the index that we have given. Okay, and one certain log file was not shared intentionally. The first set of logs we have shared application logs, Apache web server application logs, but the operating system logs were not shared intentionally. So the IT manager did not send that log to the information security officer. But there was enough information for the information security officer to know that there was a PHP shell or shell script was uploaded through the interface and it was based on PHP. So a PHP bash shell gives you access to the operating system, OS, the root access to command line access. Then ideally, ISO would know that he need to ask for the operating system log because there were few other activities which were not visible in that particular application log, but the operating system log. So this type of questions need to be asked. Other thing, we try to simulate that one in the very early levels of the incident, that ISO was supposed to guide the call center or the help desk on what to tell to the people that call in. These are very important aspects because when we handle an incident, we have internal communication between teams and we have external communication between our stakeholders. So communication between the stakeholders is very vital to manage your reputation, manage your credibility, and manage your legal compliance. This is very important. And internally, on my view, entire recovery or entire handling or management of the incident actually depends on how you communicate internally, how you talk to your internal teams, how you get them to support your efforts. If you're an information security officer, how you get your IT team to help you on recovery, how you guide them through the recovery, because they may be very good at IT, systems of administration, such things, but they might miss few things like sanity checks, backup restoration, what you have to do, how do you check for the clear operating systems or application, this type of incidents. Again, your communications team. How do you talk to public? Always incidents could go public at any time. Then how would you manage? So this type of communication is very important. So going back to the training and drills, internal practices. So these things, this type of communication aspects also has to be parts of this type of practices. And again, another thing is to control the impact of a cyber incident, some types of cyber, let's say there's a campaign or there's a website defacement or like this, or there's another lookalike site going on. So the time you take to communicate to your customers, time you take to make your customers aware of there's a scam or there's an incident going on like this is directly related to the amount of the impact that the attacker can do. So if you timely communicate, then people will know and people will not follow such links or such falsified sites or will not fall into this type of incidents. So that will greatly reduce the impact, the problem that you have to mitigate. On the other hand, we have data protection acts. So it's already live. And we are coming up with a cybersecurity act. So there are aspects that there are mandatory disclosures. If a breach happens, you have to let your people know, let the people know, let your stakeholders know that there had been a breach happen. And if there are data leakages, you have to inform the data owners, data subjects, the people, your customers. So this time, we don't have time, when the incident happens, we don't have time to think about this. We need to have preset templates. We need to we need to think about this leisurely, and we need to be ready what to communicate to people. So ideally, what on my view, we need to have set of templates with blanks for this type of communication. So we can fill in, we can put the information, detect it, just put it out as soon as possible. So we wanted to bring this into the table because this is one of the major things, and this is something not in Sri Lanka, not just in Sri Lanka, but even in the world. Bad communication is seen on most of the incidents. Most of the reported incidents, very popular incidents, we have seen bad communication. And we have seen incidents where bad communications had escalated incidents and made people leave their jobs. So that is a very important thing as on my view in incident management and getting ready for manage incidents.
Thank you, Chamath. That's a lot of points for all of you to take away. So, Neranjan, your closing thoughts?
Yeah, so I would like to highlight a few points and elaborate a bit more on what Chamath already said. During our breaks and lunchtime, so we were able to have some casual chats with some of the people here. And few people came and said that they were expecting a full-blown red team, blue team kind of thing, and they had prepared for that, brought in laptops as well. So the technical aspect of incident response is only one part of it, right? So that's what as technical people who love technology, that's what we might like to do. But incident response involves a lot of other areas as well. So I think the idea of today's exercise was to give you a glimpse of the extent to which you have to work with different teams, different cross-functional teams in incident response. So if you take the incident response cycle, so there are so many stages as well. So starting from incident identification. So we know that there are multi-stage, multi-vector attacks. I mean, an attack could come through different vectors: email, endpoint, web, network, insider threats. So it's multi-vector, and there are multi-stage attacks. I mean, like starting from reconnaissance, enumeration, payload delivery, exploitation, lateral movement, escalation of privileges, those kind of things. So you have to have the right tools and technologies and architectures to identify attacks, otherwise nothing would work. So attack identification and reporting. Then there comes the triaging, then escalation, containment, remediation, recovery, root cause analysis. So there's a whole list of processes that you have to follow in an incident response plan. So I think you were able to go through at least some of those things, if not most. And while doing that, we have to work with people from legal department, finance department, PR department, internal other stakeholders. So it's a cross-functional effort. And so that's the idea that we wanted to give you through today's exercise actually. And also the incident response cycle or the process might change depending on your organization. The size of the organization, the culture that you have, the structure that you have, the business that you are in, different strengths or weaknesses that you have, resources and everything. So you have to devise an incident response plan, and you can customize it according to your needs and wants. And to do that, you have to have the proper communication with all of your stakeholders. Sometimes you might be doing business with other organizations in a global scenario. There could be third-party vendors as well. In that case, you have to properly communicate, identify the relationships and dependencies, and you have to devise proper incident response plans working with them. So transparency, communication, flexibility, openness should be there to come up with a proper plan. And once you create the plan, you have to test it regularly, update it regularly. Otherwise, the plan will be outdated and you will not be able to get the maximum results. And proper documentation, version control should be there. So incident response is a completely different subject in cybersecurity. It's vast. It's not only technical. So just see whether you can get an understanding about all the processes and the people aspect and all the soft skills required for that. And that would be really advantageous for your careers in the cybersecurity field, I would say.
Mohan?
I think all the advice is given to you. So everything is probably summarized by Chamath and Neranjan. I'll just leave it one thought with what I have seen around the globe on incident response. So I won't give you any more information. You got all the information. So I will ask maybe 3 or 4 questions from you. If you have answers for this, you are pretty much prepared for incident response. Number 1 is, if tomorrow there's a ransomware at your place, can you handle that entire ransomware, including restoration, with just 2 calls a day, 10 a.m., 4 p.m., just 2 calls, 30 minutes. That's the only calls that you're going to make. All the communication, that is, within at least a week, can you sort everything? So that is methodology of investigation and response. It's not panicking and everyone's on a call for half an hour, everyone trying to shoot emails. Do you have a methodology just with 2 calls a day? Respond and recover and get the lessons learned. So that's the level of maturity for incident response where you would see in other markets. Number 2 is, in the incident response, if you feel that you're matured enough that you should not invest further, all your systems that are out there, how many incidents have you logged, and do you know for a fact that you have done a lessons learned rectification? What I meant by this is, not only for you, as a community, as other banks, you know what happened in the last year for as an industry. Has any of those has changed any of your internal processes? If ABC Bank got this, she had CD Bank as your internal processes, have you done any changes to you for internal technologies, detections and processes as a result of an external learning? So that is an indication of you have a proper incident response mechanisms and a management, because that means you're proactively trying to be resilient in terms of response. Last piece that you have a proper incident response that you need to answer yourself is, if tomorrow I have an incident, and do I know at what point I need to start communicating and to whom? Can you answer that question within 30 seconds? So if you can answer that question within 30 seconds, if you're in your head, I know at this point, this set of stakeholders, this point, this set of stakeholders, this point, this set of regulators, this point, this set of legal entities, you are prepared for that. So most of us at different levels of maturity in organizations would not answer these 3 questions. So this is the biggest pain point that you're going to see in terms of eradication and recovery phases, because our prevention and identification phases are quite not strong. So this is quite common across the globe. How people come to maturity is by improving these 3-4 very minimal areas, so your incident response matures vastly. In order to do that, I think what Neranjan and Chamath said, you all need to do all that. But if you can't answer those questions in your mind right now, right away, that means a bit of mind time need to go into incident response.
Thank you, Mohan. So I too have a question, right? So before I conclude, I have a question for all of you. Did you enjoy what you did today from morning till evening? Show of hands. Only this side. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Do you have a lot of takeaways for you? At least one? What is that you're going to do when you go back? Have you noted it down? Brilliant. So, ISACA and ISC2 Colombo Chapter are collaboration partners with FinCERT CERT and LankaPay, right? And the sponsors are Just in Time. What I'd like to highlight, the 2 professional bodies are leaders in the space, right? Governance, risk, compliance, cybersecurity. Those of you who have not pursued a certification, ISACA is offering a discounted training. Am I right, Indika? Yeah, discounted training. Make use of it. And ISC2 is also offering a free certification for a limited period of time. It's called the Certified in Cybersecurity. It can be done by anyone, not necessarily by people in IT. If you know somebody who is in your team who has done geography, get them to do it. Somebody who's done history, get them to do it. When we do incident handling, we need to have people, am I right to say, Anand? We need to have people who understand history, geography, because we need to understand the bigger picture, right? Not only handling the incidents. right? So you can now transition people from other fields into the field of cybersecurity. So certified in cybersecurity is available free right now for a limited number of time. Examination is free, study material is free. Study time is about 14 hours to 20 hours. If you want to become a member, you just got to pay $50. Both ISACA and ISC2 have a lot of material, training material out there, which you can avail free of cost if you're a member. Right? You take any subject, go and look for incident management, you would have a lot of material there. Right? You can enhance. Right? So with that thought, I just want to conclude. I have a written script, and I probably preempted what these gentlemen were going to say, and it all fits in well here, right? So I probably would read out so that you could enjoy listening to this, right? Our advisories are no longer confined by geographical boundaries, and the potential for harm knows no limit. In the face of this ever-evolving threat landscape, cyber war games emerges as the beacon of hope. These simulated exercises are not just games, they are training grounds where we hone our skills, test our strategies, and bolster our readiness to defend against cyber threats. I guess you would agree on that. Summarizing all what these gentlemen said, preparedness, response, communication, adaptability, continuous improvement are the focus. So for me, if you summarize all these things, the focus has to be the human factor. So behind every plan, every technology, and every strategy, it is the human element that ultimately makes a difference. Incident management relies on dedication, expertise, and resilience of individuals who come together to navigate through the storm. In today's digital age, technology plays a dual role. It introduces new risks, but also provides invaluable tools for monitoring, analysis, and communication. Effective incident management harnesses technology wisely, striking a balance between innovation and security. Incident management is not merely about reacting to these crises, it is about responding with precision and resilience. It is about turning chaos into order, uncertainty into clarity, and adversity into opportunity. It is about ensuring when the storm passes, we emerge stronger than before. Incident management is not just a skill or a process, it is a mindset. It is a commitment to protect what matters most, to ensure the continuity of operations, and to safeguard the well-being of our communities. So with that note, I want to thank on behalf of FinCERT CERT, LankaPay, the main sponsor Just in Time, ISACA Sri Lanka Chapter, and ISC2 Colombo Chapter for putting this event together. And more importantly, I want to thank each and every one of you and all the organizations which sponsored you to be here. And I'm sure you're taking a wealth of experience with you back. So stay back and enjoy the rest of the session. I think it's going to be awards and giveaways. So have a great evening and look forward to seeing you in another event. Take care.